Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. Thank you for being here. Joining me in a after work coffee drink, and no one did bring me flowers, is Karen.
Sorry about that. Hi.
And Lou.
As he sips his coffee. Hello, everyone.
And I am Jesse Jackson. We are talking Exogenesis today. Season 3, episode 7 per J. Michael Straczynski. It is the last non-arc episode in a while.
Oh,
so
spoiler.
Yeah, spoilers.
I'm okay with that spoiler, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think once again, unconsciously, JMS is trying to find the perfect pairing for his Odd Couple spinoff. So I think that's what he's going through some of these episodes, putting people together to looking for the perfect combo for a buddy cop movie. This did come out in February 12th, 1996, and I can't wait to talk about it. Karen, your thoughts on Exogenesis?
You mentioned last week, and I don't know whether it was off mic or not, off recording or not, you know what I mean, that this was kind of a meh episode. And I went into it assuming, yeah, it's kind of a meh episode. However, while I do agree, I think there were some pretty good beats in this episode. And like you said, it's really, I mean, there's like almost nothing that's in the arc, I'm assuming. The big arc for the show. A couple little things maybe, but I did think that this was not the best episode I've ever seen, but a few little parts of it I enjoyed.
Right. Yeah, and I want to hear what you have to say, Lou, obviously, but
Oh, good.
watching it, I was like, oh, this is a little better than I remembered. So go ahead, Lou.
I would say that this is a Horta by any other name. And that's, if you're not an original Star Trek fan, there's an episode, The Devil in the Dark, which is about a creature that everybody thinks is a murderous monster, but then they find out that it's a mother protecting its eggs. And while this is not exactly the same kind of story, it's pretty similar thematically. And from that aspect, I enjoyed it. I agree with Karen. There were some good character beats, and there was some fun stuff with synthetic roses that I enjoyed. And I thought that Marcus is showing that he's a very intriguing character. So I liked it from all those aspects. But I do agree with you, Jesse. I was disappointed that it doesn't seem to have much relevance to the overarching main series storyline.
As I can't find my mute button. So let's get into the main storyline. Basically, in Marcus's journey to find sources, and I'm a little, I guess you need to have intel on what's going on in the station, though it does seem like most of your intel would be coming from outside the station. But it appears he likes meeting people and bonding and finding things. And he's, we kind of see him going through his rounds, and he has bonded with someone down below, a lurker called Duncan, and he really bonds with him. And when he finds out that he's missing, this leads him to, and also one of his sources has decided, nope, I'm not going to be part of this little group anymore because I found another purpose. And we now find out that, oh my goodness, aliens are taking over people. It is the body snatchers, which, by the way, we could have a whole nother discussion of how the different remakes of the body snatchers mirror our current political situation, which is a fascinating thought. So I'm going to kick it off with you, Lou. Kind of let's go through all, and then let's talk about the big reveal that, surprise, they aren't necessarily bad people.
Yeah, it starts off with that scene with Duncan and what's his name? Mark. No, yeah, Marcus and Duncan. I really like the actor that plays Duncan, who is I just had his name there. Was it
Aubrey Morris?
Aubrey Morris. He plays like a very Dickens-esque character. So I just automatically get into the vibe of the scene between the two of them. Marcus is showing himself to be quite a complicated character, operating on many levels, and I like that. He really reminds me of Aragorn from the Lord of the Rings movies, so in look and mannerisms and whatnot. So I really enjoyed those scenes, and the discovery of the alien creatures, which for some weird reason they kind of reminded me of the earworms from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. You can see I really you can really tell what my sci-fi yardstick is for shows. So, but it just really reminded me of that. I do like the morphing scene where the creature goes through the person's skin into their body to become a fuse to their spine. I thought that was quite well done. And at first it's playing the episode's playing a pretty dark, and you're thinking, oh, that, like you said, this is like the invasion of the body snatchers or something like that. And the main thrust of the storyline works because of our we like the relationship between Duncan and Cole. Where it stumbles a little bit is, unfortunately, all the other actors that they have that are already been absorbed are okay. None of them are terrible, but none of them really sell what they're doing either. They're just serving the story. And while they didn't take me out of the story, the alien storyline, they didn't really add anything to it either. It was really down to Duncan. So it didn't quite come off as good as it could have, but I like the revelation or the reveal, I guess, that they were looking for people whose lives had no purpose and meaning. And boy, how many people today would jump at a chance like this? I don't know. If you can get past the initial revulsion of being, having your spine fused with an alien, it's a lot like the what are the creatures in Star Trek? The ones that fuse with your body.
The Trill?
The Trill, yes, thank you. And I remember reading a book a long time ago by Frederick Pohl, which I thought was kind of a young adult novel, but it was the same thing about a alien fusing with a teenage boy just trying to get back home. So the idea of symbiotic relationships is something that science fiction has looked at quite a bit, and it's this was an interesting twist on that. I question some of the backstory of this, because it doesn't seem to be a lot of these aliens, and how could they have amassed all of this knowledge, and how do they ever reveal it to anybody else? It seems like they're just hoarding it and not sharing it. So it was a little undercooked from that perspective, but I did like it, and I did like the final scene between Duncan and Cole where he tells Marcus that uh, that experience that he had with the alien has sort of, jolted him into realizing that he can do he could do the very same things the aliens were promising on his own, and that he's going to go to try to see some of these things. Where he's going to get the money from, I don't know, because I thought he was basically a beggar the down below. So maybe he's one of these reclusive millionaire types. I don't know, but anyhow, so that the sentiment at the end for that character was good. And again, Aubrey Morris just carried that role fantastically. I really liked his performance.
Karen?
Yeah, I agree about Aubrey Morris. He was a character actor, and he was in a lot of stuff that people might know him from. I didn't recognize anything that he had been in, but
a lot of British stuff, probably.
British, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen him before.
And he did a lot of stage things.
Yeah.
So he was a stage actor, and that showed, I think, in his acting with Marcus. I loved their interactions because, I'm a book nerd, and for them to like be all comparing him to a character in Macbeth and I'm sorry, the Scottish play. We're not allowed to say that, right? I just enjoyed their friendship. And even in the later scenes between he and Duncan, Marcus and Duncan, where Duncan is explaining to him that he did this with his consent and, all that. That was kind of touching, I thought, that he decided to disengage, even though he knew he could never, go back. He would end up, dying as an old man instead of using this parasite to extend his life. And I would like to think he's hitchhiking, just personally, because I think that would be cool to have him like hitchhiking around to find culture. And I also like that we're seeing Marcus and what he is actually doing. He is amassing a network of people that he can get information from. And doing that down below, I think is kind of smart, because those people have dealings with people that come and go on the station. And so they would be able to like bring him bits of information and all that. That's cool. I appreciated that Marcus, sorry, I shouldn't say he or she, because there's a lot of moving parts in this episode, that Marcus is trying to amass as much as possible without flying over the radar. And, he misses every one of his contacts, because when the first guy decides he's not going to be a contact anymore, he notices and he misses him. And then with Duncan, who he has struck up a friendship with, that causes him to actually, instead of just saying, oh, well, he doesn't want to be my contact anymore, he actually does investigation and is very proactive, trying to find out what happened to Duncan. And I like that, seeing that side of Marcus, that not only is he trying to be actively gaining knowledge, but he's also forming bonds with these people, which is awesome. And of course, we see him bond with Franklin, and that is an interesting pairing, I thought. It was logical that he would go to the doctor when Garibaldi blows him off. I wondered why Garibaldi blew him off so hard. Is there some kind of grudge he has against Marcus? Is he not we know that Susan has already butted heads with him, but what's the deal with Garibaldi? He really blew him off hard. And I think he and he and Franklin made a pretty good pair. I love that he didn't tell Franklin that he was going behind Garibaldi's back. I mean, I think that that whole dynamic was really funny. And that showed when they were locked up together. And he said, not as such. He's saying how no one knew where they were, and Franklin just being completely blindsided by that. And of course, the whole thing where he tells the guy how to use his little stick thing, and it being the thing that allows them to get out of the prison cell thing. I mean, it was just funny. That whole, once they got into the little jail cell, which, why is there a jail cell in this in this quarters on the Babylon 5? I mean, did they bring in a jail cell and erect it just for this purpose? But anyway, I thought it was cool, and I loved their interplay. And I thought it was ingenious that Marcus knows enough to kind of, outsmart the creature parasite thing. And I agree with Lou that the other actors kind of didn't sell it, but I think Duncan really made up for that. The other characters were, I would say, robotic, but not even that. I mean, they were really just, I felt like those were performances that were literally phoning it in, I thought. So, and I don't mean literally, you know what I mean, right?
Sure.
So yeah, I agree 100%. But I did think that there were parts of that storyline that had repercussions. We learned a lot about Marcus through that storyline. So
yeah, I agree that the people who have been merged seem very wooden. And so that, of course, led to why Marcus was concerned.
right.
If they had been less wooden, it might have been easier to sell. Duncan talking about almost in the we terms of the person that was Duncan, the person that is me, sells it a lot better. And it could be because he's a better actor than the rest, nothing personal. Or maybe he had a little better writing, or just a little more
Or all of the
thought.
above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, we had an emotional connection with him because of the earlier scenes with him and Cole.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Right. And so I think that because you do really love them together, and this why aren't I'm trying to take a nap. I don't care if people steal my stuff.
Yep.
And the whole 2 credits, and it's the same thing it was yesterday. And you could tell he just adores him. And it does feel like that Marcus truly cares about the people that he's recruiting.
Yeah.
That they are not just CIs. They are this network of, he is building together a network of little birds in the Game of Thrones, reference that he can use to help. And so I like that a lot.
And I'd like to think, I'm sorry, I'd like to think that they are being recruited with a full knowledge of what they're being recruited for.
Yes.
And they are in, they want to be part of that movement instead of just people that are outliers. And
well, because he did said, I thought we had decided on a better purpose.
Right.
So he mentioned that to them. I did love the Garibaldi being really, really a jerk.
Yeah.
This isn't my problem. I don't know. Why are you bugging me? Go away unless there's a problem. We are starting to see a
So
more
you like that scene?
I liked the interaction which led to him helping the going to the doctor. I don't
Mm,
like that Garibaldi had no
yeah,
empathy.
yeah.
That's what we are starting to see. I think they know the character a little bit more, that if you're in Garibaldi's network, then he would do anything to help you. If not, he has a big class problem. Noted he was like, we should have killed more. Like this isn't
Mm-hmm.
good enough. And now then they're just lurkers. We
Yep.
don't care. They are the homeless. They
Yeah, fair
are
point.
people.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I don't like that about him,
No.
but I think that it is versus um Garibaldi wanting to be all things to all people. That's,
Mhm.
I just see that a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
also have a weird, not a question, but I
Yeah.
do have a question, but I think it's a weird scene at the beginning when the Corwin is getting promoted, and somebody, is it Franklin? I think says, why isn't Duncan here? And I'm
Or
going, but he's
Marcus. Yeah.
Marcus, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm going, well, why would he be there? He's not part of the Babylon 5 command structure. Like that didn't make any sense to me. I mean, I know they
Agreed.
want to. I know they want to insert him into the storyline and ask respects to probably particularly Susan, because they've got that sort of
Yeah.
like comedic romantic storyline going on as well. But that just like was like totally out of the blue to me. I didn't get that at all. Like he's not part of the Babylon 5 command structure. Why would he be there?
Right.
And like, what if they're already having trouble with rumors about stuff going on, and that now you're going to have like a ranger sitting with the rest of you in public, and that's like that's just didn't make any sense to me.
Agreed.
Okay, good. I'm
Um,
Well,
glad I
so
wasn't the only one.
does that mean that Franklin is the leak?
Oh,
I mean, I don't think that has repercussions or anything, but he doesn't seem to care if people know about them.
yeah.
I mean,
so
I just want to hate Franklin. Is that
Oh,
yeah.
that's
okay.
just me?
All
Okay.
right.
I I viewed this as that Franklin was doing a little bit of matchmaking, is what I viewed that
Mm,
as. Is I
Oh,
thought, oh, I thought you were going to, invite Marcus, and the idea of he's the new guy.
mhm.
We should include him. And then I thought, you know, Susan was why, you know, he's
Mhm.
not just exactly what you said, Lou. Like, well,
Mhm.
there's other civilians being invited, but they have a connection to him. Has
Yeah.
he even met Carwin? You know? So yeah, I thought that was a nice little scene. And uh which we'll get to that kind of odd storyline in a minute.
That
Uh
yeah, that doesn't
yeah.
quite work for me, because later on Franklin is surprised when Cole starts talking about Susan. Like, so
Oh,
I don't know.
no, I think that's a really good point. I then why yeah, so is the idea just because he's the new guy, we want to make him feel welcome? What was that?
Yeah.
I mean, story-wise, I think you set that up to remind everyone Susan is not especially a fan of this guy,
Right.
yeah,
right?
Right.
for the B storyline.
Yeah.
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 I did love that even though the doctor and Marcus were trying to help people, they ended up hurting Duncan. That
Mhm.
Duncan would have actually had been happier with this new life. And because in Duncan being such a good guy gave up that chance to prove that everything's okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that was a nice touch. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it was, and not a spoiler because it says in our feedback, and it's just we don't ever hear from these people again.
Okay.
Like we don't hear from the shadow mages. We don't, we just don't have this, why did you set this up? And I assume it's okay if you just wanted to do a story that I want to turn the evasion of body snatchers story on at a different angle. but it kind of was there.
Yeah, to me, it was like I said off the top. It was like the ode
Yeah.
to the Devil in the Dark
Yes,
episode.
exactly. Which was much better done
Yes.
in my mind.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And not just because I have Star Trek as the yardstick on my fandom as well. I just think you cared about that.
Yep.
The other big storyline is that Corwin, who for the longest time did not have a name, that that character was promoted. And so we see him looking very uncomfortable because there is a big party celebrating his promotion. Now, I don't know if they do that with every promotion, or is he just someone who everyone loves, but you get free drinks, everyone's happy. And for some reason, Sheridan goes, he's going to be around a lot more, though wouldn't he have always been around a lot?
That was my question too.
And so we need to find out, can he be included into our little club?
Well, does he get more access to things?
Yeah, it could
probably.
be.
Or he's invited to more meetings or
Right.
meetings, yeah.
So
they have to talk around him now.
More.
So, hey, Susan, why don't you find out more about this guy? And Susan has no clue on the right way to do this, and she sends all the wrong messages. I do think, I can't put myself in that place, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm a fairly young employee, a superior, someone above me in my chain wants to get together. Instead of meeting for a dinner or drinks, they invite me back to their apartment. Kind of sexual harassment, right?
Right.
It's there. And so, and side point, there a few years ago when I was working for a company, we went to Canada, me and my boss, and Brian was his name, and he Brian would always give me a hard time because I didn't drink. And then after we had been to a new office in Canada, we went back and we went to his hotel room to kind of debrief. And he was talking about if he had traveled with a female employee, he couldn't do that because it would be inappropriate. And I thought that was odd. And my friend said, I think you're missing the story. Your boss wants you to get drunk and invite him to his room. I think you need to be worried. So
he was implying something.
Yes, and trust me, Brian was not. It was not at all. So let's talk about.
Yeah, you can't assume, really.
Right.
But,
so I think Susan does this horribly. Kind of this very awkward, hey, what about breaking the rules? And of course, if I'm with a boss, I'm going to go, no, never break the rules. What do you think? What are you trying to trick me on? And then she abruptly, okay, I'm done with you. Doesn't even get to finish his coffee. This was just really, really poorly done. And poor Corwin doesn't know he failed a test. And he even didn't bring her flowers, and when he bought flowers. So this was all kind of a mess. Karen, talk to me about this.
Agreed. A mess would be a good way to put it. I think that it's probably no longer a mess, but I also think Corwin is scratching his head, even still. He's a straight guy. I mean, he is, I would say, maybe a Boy Scout, someone like that. You can tell already from the interactions he's had from down in that little pit on the CNC. I do think that he and Susan have been working together for quite some time. And that's what makes me think he figured out that maybe that was a romantic invitation, that, they've been working together and they maybe had a bit of a rapport. You see her talking to him every once in a while in the show. And that maybe he was kind of hoping because he had a little bit of a crush. I mean, I kind of thought that maybe that was part of why he bought into it so easily. However, she did not do a good job at all explaining she didn't explain to him at all what their meeting was going to be about. She was very vague. And the fact that she invited him back to her place, that really is, it's so iffy. That would not work today on a TV show at all.
Or in the future.
Right, exactly. But you got to put your mind in the fact that this was actually 1996.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have worked then, but we allowed things like that to happen on TV. So I do appreciate that it was also kind of funny that he shows up with this really expensive bouquet of roses, and her reaction to them as what causes him to play it off. She says, "Who the hell are those from?" She's very bristly about it. And that's what makes him kind of back off instead of saying, "Yeah, I brought them for you," which to me, and I'm putting myself in Corwin's shoes here, I would say, "Yeah, I got them for you. I thought they'd maybe, cheer up your space or whatever." I would play it off as just a friendly gesture. Even if they're roses, you could still say, "I got them because you've been such a great boss," and, all this stuff. But it doesn't really, that wouldn't set up the premise of her reading into it that it's someone else.
Well, and the other thing is, my mom always told me that when I visit someone's home, I should bring flowers because everyone loves fresh flowers, right? And that could have been very easily
played off. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
That you should, if you're invited to someone's house, you should always bring something.
Yes.
That's what my mother always instilled in me.
Yes.
Wine or a plant or, something.
Yes, you do.
Depending upon the occasion, like if it's housewarming, you get them a plant, that sort of thing. But he could have played it off. I do think that he was so gobsmacked in that moment that she had that reaction that he had to kind of back off. Yeah, I found him right here.
Yeah, I mean, because she goes through this whirlwind of who's doing that, though, who doesn't like it? Well, this is dumb. And he's like, okay, what, right. What do I do? What do I do? Yes.
Yeah, it was all in character, at least.
It was.
Whereas I would play it off, I think to myself, yeah, Corwin probably didn't have that in him. So I can see where that is. I like that she appreciates the flowers. She smells them and thinks they smell nice. And that also plays into that, like Lou said before, that rom-com kind of relationship between her and Marcus, that she later on in the episode, it clicks for her that maybe Marcus sent them to her. And she assumes that Marcus would have sent them for a different purpose, not as a like secret admirer type thing, but he's trying to butter her up or something. And she gets mad at him. Keep him. And he does, since he didn't send the roses, he doesn't understand that, and he appreciates them at that point, which, I mean, it's like a joke upon a joke upon a joke. And I did like that little storyline. And it also sets up that Marcus is going to be into her. So I do think that has, and I hate to say ramifications, but it's ramifications for a very B storyline, I think. And it's just funny that whole, I mean, this episode, for being an episode about parasites, quote unquote, infecting the crew. I mean, the
down below.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever. The populace. It's a funny episode. It's very weird that there would be so much humor in this episode about, parasitic infection. So yeah, I think it's a weird place to insert this, but I did like the little storyline between the two of them. Poor Corwin. That's all I can say. And like I said before, I do think that he's going to have access to more information. And that's why they needed to know whether they could actually be lax around him or they have to tiptoe. So I think that's a fair point. And I'm upset that that she gives the nod to, no, sorry, he can't be. And Bruce is upset by that.
Yeah. Lou, thoughts?
Yeah, I think Karen covered it quite well. If looking at it from the show mythology, character development perspective, I know Susan's not the most diplomatically, socially skilled, adroit member of the crew, but I don't think she's that bad. And you just go with it because to me, the whole sub thread was a homage to like the 1940s screwball kind of romantic comedies where something which should be communicated clearly and properly is not, and that leads to an escalating series of events. Corwin, he obviously is flabbergasted at her invitation, and he admires and is afraid of her at the same time. So his reaction when he gets to the door is pretty understandable. I did really like how Susan, on the one hand, like you said, Jesse, she had the whirlwind of reactions. On the one hand, she's going, this is dumb, and she's, oh, I really like these. Like it was like this back and forth between the two polar end of an emotional spectrum, which I think for a lot of guys is the way they see women sometimes. And why they have a difficulty communicating with each other because of this wide range of reactions to something. And that whole bit with Susan and how she fawned and was revolted about the flowers just totally put him ill at ease because he didn't know where she was coming from. So I did like that. And as you mentioned, Jesse, the coffee bit was funny because he took like a quick little last sip before he had to go and he'd finished his cup yet. I thought that was pretty funny. I didn't think Susan went nearly deep enough with her line of questioning about where his loyalties would lie. And I'm hoping that in future episodes there may be a moment where he could give up the goods on them, but then he steps up and covers for them, and then they realize at that moment that, okay, this guy is actually worthy of being on our inner circle. I don't know how big of a part this character is going to play going forward. I suspect that even if that happens, it'll be like a one-off moment in an episode. I don't think he'll get any deeper involved with the conflict. I might be wrong in that. I don't know, but
well, I don't think it's spoiler to say we have a very big cast.
Yes.
And we have a lot of mouths to feed, as they say,
yes.
Right? So yes.
Yeah. So I don't think he'll get a really big part. And it's hard to tell from the actor at this point because his role has been pretty perfunctory. So I don't really know what kind of depth he has. I thought he showed a little more in this episode, but because he's playing like somebody that's, like walking on eggs, it's kind of hard to get a good read on exactly what his range is. But the payoff at the end with Susan thinking that Marcus sent her the flowers and Marcus thinking that she sent him the flowers, I think is going to be fun watching going forward in future episodes. I think that, based on what we saw with Marcus in this episode with Duncan, he's going to take a gesture like that quite personally and deeply. And I think it'll be fun for them to come to the realization, if they ever do, that neither one of them sent the flowers to each other. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Yeah. I do have to say, I agree with Lou. It didn't ever occur to me that maybe down the road he would be tested, Corwin. I think he'd be a great asset to them, to be honest, because he's pretty solid.
They need a cover person for when they're off doing their things, right? They don't have that
Exactly.
now. So
Exactly. And since he's a lieutenant now, he holds a little bit more weight. He could actually literally step in for Susan
yeah.
on the CNC. So yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a great point, Lou.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. You guys have covered it pretty well. We do get a romantic comedy trope from the 40s, and the idea of misunderstanding. I did think whoever played the florist shop did a really good job. What's not like to like florists? Who doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
The only mistake I find is when you don't get them. So I thought he was pretty interesting, and um, it. So yeah, I thought it was just a funny little beat. Nothing great. I don't. Um, if we get back later with Corwin, it might show. Um, I just, if I, and once again, I realize it's a TV show and it's trying to serve, but I would definitely say, um, let's meet for drinks after work, right? And or
Mm-hmm.
have for coffee, and let's go. My boss is big on, he doesn't do one-on-ones, he does coffee. So we meet offsite at a coffee shop just
Mm-hmm.
to visit so that
Right.
we could, spend time. And so that would have been a little bit easier than, hey, come to my house, but then it wouldn't have been as funny.
Yep.
I'm missing anything? We get to see Franklin deal with his staff to kind of show. I was happy about that because often on these shows, um, you have one doctor, like like on the
Mm-hmm.
Enterprise, like McCoy's supposed to be the only doctor, or Dr. Mamboyo on the Strange New Worlds. So it's kind of nice to see that he's got a staff of doctors that he's dealing with in
Mm-hmm.
different places.
And
Yeah.
it
Um,
also it kind of illustrates the fact that like he has doctors that are in charge of the other med bays, which
Yes,
is
that
Yeah.
cool.
that
Yeah.
establishes there are other med bays.
Yeah. And they
Right.
gave that
Yeah.
one actor, they gave her quite a moment, and she was the only one that was not like in a med uniform. She was wearing like the blue Babylon 5
Yeah.
form. So I don't know if they were planting a seed there or if that was just,
Hmm.
I don't know. Yeah. The only other thing I'll say, say about this episode is, uh, and I was just looking at his credits, but apparently the guy in the opening episode where he's being the creature that is being absorbed into his spine is Brian Freefeld, and he's credited as the Writhing Man. Apparently, that's his only that's
Okay.
his only entry in IMDb as well. So to Brian, I appreciated your writing, sir. Well done.
Correct.
Good.
And
Okay.
doesn't that sound more sinister than it actually
Yeah,
was?
that's a
The
title. That's a great title.
Writhing
That's a
Man.
great title for a story or something,
I agree.
or a book.
Yeah.
The Writing Man.
Mhm.
Dun
Yeah.
dun dun.
Yeah.
Uh, can I mention also? I don't know if
Please.
we're to this kind of thing, but the ship that they arrive on at the
Mhm.
very beginning of the episode is called the Dyson, which
Okay.
I'm assuming, like in other science fiction shows, they use Dyson in recognition of the astrophysicist Freeman Dyson. I'm
Yeah.
Yes,
assuming.
I'm
That's right.
sure.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I just wanted to drop that in as a mention.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Good. Anything else?
Yeah, the quote that Marcus made to Garibaldi when they were, when he was trying to get him to come down with him,
Yeah.
he mentioned Mr. Marley here would like a word with you. He's the fellow
Yeah.
in the chains. I thought that was very Dickens as well. So
Yeah.
Marcus seems to be a very well-read man, a Renaissance man, if you will.
Yeah, he does seem to be yeah, yeah, the classics, and also I did love the line where he and Franklin, there are three of them with guns against two of us with nothing. They can cut us down before we get halfway across the room. Well, all I need for them is leave one of them to leave the room. That'll be only one man with one gun. Excuse me, where I come from, one man from three leaves two. Where I come from is a far more interesting place.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love this. And I do love the reference to the Scottish play based on that the superstition. And in Babylon 5, they talk about in a future episode, someone did not call it the Scottish play. And
Uh-oh.
because of someone that was there, they had to go through this whole ritual. And that will come up when we get to that episode.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yes.
So for the uninformed in the audience, and I'll include myself in this, you guys keep talking about the Scottish play. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's Macbeth. But you're not allowed to say Macbeth in a theater.
Okay.
It's a curse.
Oh, is it just a superstition thing?
I honestly don't know where it came from. I can look it up, but
okay. And so but Macbeth is a Scottish-based story setting.
Macbeth,
okay.
Yeah, is
I'm ashamed to admit that.
Yeah,
that I didn't know that.
It is said that the actor playing Lady Macbeth tragically died on opening night in 1606, and Shakespeare himself had to step in. Dueling Macbeth productions in New York caused the Great Astor Place riot in 1849. At least 25 dead and 100 injured. So there is Macbeth is surrounded by superstition and fear of the curse, and so saying the play's name aloud in theater causes bad luck.
Yeah, just to narrow down a little bit more, this is like the origin of it. According to folklore, Macbeth was cursed from the beginning. A coven of witches objected to Shakespeare using real incantations, so they'd put a curse on the play.
Okay.
And that's why the woman died and the things happened.
And this superstition persists to today, because I've never heard anybody talk about it in any of the various things that I've seen in relation to Macbeth.
Yep, it's still around today.
So if you went into a theater and stood up and yelled out Macbeth, everybody would head to the exit doors.
Yes, and they would tell you you're not allowed to do that as well.
Yeah, I think I have actually, I can't remember what specifically, but I knew immediately what they're talking about, because it is at least a kind of like break a leg. You know, you don't wish people good luck before. It's just superstitious.
Yeah. I've heard of break a leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we know that. Macbeth isn't quite as well known as break a leg, but anyone who does, Shakespeare in theater, or anyone who performs in a theater where Shakespeare is also performed, they know about it. And I've seen it in other things, like in books or in TV or whatever, and I'm guessing you just never saw those things.
Yeah, but which is weird, because
you would have.
I've been around for a while, so you would think I would have accidentally stumbled over that. Maybe I did and I just forgot about it, but the reference was totally lost on me. So I appreciate you explaining it to me.
Yeah, I just was looking, and I'd have to double check this fact. So I'm saying this with air quotes, but there's a column on Medium talking about the Scottish play and Macbeth, and why can't you say Macbeth in the theater? And one of the lines toward the end, he said, Chris Rock was on stage and he said Macbeth loved it. And then afterwards, he said in that theater, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock like that. So he had said Macbeth and he got slapped in the face. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I hope the hell it is. I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. That would be funny.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. All right. Karen, you want to rate us?
Sure. I'm not going to go super low because I liked it. Maybe 7.5 Scottish plays, since we talked about it.
Okay. Lou?
I'll go 7 Devils in the Dark.
Okay. Well, I am right there with you guys. I'm going to go 7 Artificial Roses.
Synthetic.
So, yes. And well, I'm doing artificial because of the great Bobby Darin's song, right? He gave, Synthetic Roses. Yeah, I mean, this is fine. It was, this is one that we could very easily skip during a rewatch.
I can't.
No, because you love Marcus?
So much Marcus.
Oh, very nice. Good.
So Jesse, you're saying that from now on, every episode is a arc
That
episode?
is what JMS says in his
Okay.
point. Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of episodes left.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in there. I'm good.
Looking at the titles, I think that seems right to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the next episode, Messages from Earth, is a very intriguing title, to be sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Point of No Return. Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Severed Dreams, Ceremonies of Light and Dark, Sir Transit Ver, Late Delivery from Babylon is one you guys are going to love.
Ship of Tears.
Ship of Tears, Interludes and Examinations, War Without End. By the way, I have emailed Charles about War Without End Part 1, War Without End Part 2. Yes, it is the Babylon 4 comes back. So this is the second part of those. This is the yeah. So
more listeners are going to be upset with you, Jesse.
Yes.
More
drop the goods there. Maybe we should cut this out of the episode.
Yeah.
Maybe we should cut this out of the episode.
Yeah, maybe so. Oh.
We're okay with it, just so you guys know.
All right. Okay. We did get some feedback. Speaking of listeners, you want to give us some highlights, Karen?
Sure. Let me read Texas's first.
Right.
Texas and the Shock said, so conspiracy on Babylon 5. Oh, I forgot about that. That's the STTNG episode with the little parasites that they ate.
Yeah.
And it fused to their, okay, but there's more to it. But this episode has always been a little meh to me. And JMS himself wasn't very satisfied with it either. JMS says, my personal evaluation of the episode is that it's okay. The second half, I think, isn't as strong as the first half. Halfway through writing the episode, we had a problem come up in production that unexpectedly took me away from the script for about a week. Nothing major, but it had to be dealt with, and it took time. Usually, I write copious notes on a script before I begin writing it. In this case, the story was so crystalline clear in my head that I just dived in and was blasting away terrific when the hit came midway through. By the time I got back, I'd lost some of the fingerprints of the story and had to kind of refine them again. Mainly, I think the expository sequence at the end could have been done better. My opinion is a little different. I think it most shows in the Ivanova-Corwin conversation. If Ivanova had gone the route of asking what he thought of allegations against the president and then used that as a segue, she might have gotten a better answer. I agree. Even then, I think he'd answer something along the lines of, that's way above my pay grade. The investigation will sort it out. But until then, he's still the president. He doesn't strike me as the type willing to stick his neck out on something like that. Then Ivanova would report back to Sheridan that even if Corwin would sympathize with them, he wouldn't be willing to take an active role, and they would be best served by not putting him in that position. Now on to the other plot. The highlight of this episode is Marcus and Franklin. Richard Biggs and Jason Carter just work so well together. They got to be good friends and actually did a series of acting workshops together, the Biggs and Carter experience. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that. As for the Vendrisi, the concept is great, but unlike the Great Machine, they never get brought up again. It's literally like Conspiracy, where these things are introduced, and at the end, seemingly some kind of message is sent, but nothing ever comes of it. Unless the new shows have, I haven't really been following those. Some have asked why they didn't try to contact the command staff and get this cleared with them. My thought is that with over 500,000 years of experiences, they've probably had bad encounters with authority figures before. There are some that if they ever found out about them would have had them hunted down and exterminated. So I can definitely see them slinking about unnoticed rather than risking making contact with anyone in positions of power. Again, an okay episode, but not one of my favorites. Until next time, listen to the rhythm of the falling rain. This is the Texas Animal Shock signing off in Valen's name.
Nice.
Thank you, Texas.
Yes, as always, well written, good points. And I had known you had sent in those feedback, so that's why I did not add them when we were discussing, because I knew you were doing the heavy lifting for me.
To Texas, you're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's cool.
Yes.
Sorry, they are cool.
Yes.
David Darnell sent us also a very short feedback. Not a whole lot on this one, IMO. It's comparable to Geometry of Shadows, but with less significance to the overall story. Essentially the same backstory. The Vendrizi are gathering together at B5 before going, quote unquote, somewhere else to protect the unique knowledge they have from the coming war. JMS did turn the aliens taking over humans trope and changed it a bit, although IMO, it would have been more effective had TNG and DS9 not introduced the Trill a few years before. Good interaction between Marcus and Franklin. Hopefully we'll see more of them working together. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Didn't particularly care for the Susan Corwin part. We've seen him in CNC for almost a year, and she just now is getting to know him. Doesn't jive with my experience. Having been in a leadership position, you want to know them ASAP and work to integrate them into a team long before you have to depend on them in a crunch. Marcus and Ivanova, that could be interesting, ... Fasten your seatbelts, an 18-wheeler full of problems headed to B5, and hell is riding in with it. Thank you, David.
Mm-hmm.
He and I have talked a little bit on Twitter. He's a cool person. So I dig that he's sending us feedback.
Absolutely.
And from Nathan. Yay. Hi, Nathan. Hey, guys. Another dip in a stronger season. It's supposed to be a horror until the eventual reveal that body snatchers are actually benevolent. But it never works as horror in the first place, mainly because I never got to care for people who are taken and was never afraid of the invaders, so the show needed to do more to add suspense. But instead, it was written and filmed as a mostly straightforward thing. On the other hand, it gave us Marcus and Franklin, and their bickering is amazing. That, along with the Corwin Ivanova sitcom, is what makes the episode watchable. Also, it's fun to see Garibaldi being actually consistent with his job title and overall ideological bend and not caring about people who fell on hard times. In the first season, the show tried to make him into a lovable, off-the-hip cowboy type who got a job that doesn't fit him because of his friend, but he tries. Flawed policemen who bend the rules for their friends and cause often work, but I don't think Garibaldi ever did. He's kind of a bland mash most of the time, but being paranoid or complaining about not executing people anymore and lurkers being a waste of time are moments where he shines. With regards, Nathan.
Nice.
So that's the feedback emails we got. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
For sending those in.
We really, really appreciate it. You can please give us feedback, and the email address, which I always forget to have, is jklb5podcast@gmail.com. Lou, any highlights from the YouTube comments? I know we've had some very good discussions there.
Yeah, pretty tame this week. There's with this last episode, the Dust to Dust episode, there's some disagreement about whether or not Susan would actually shoot a spaceship out of the sky. And then there's mention that Kosh is not the usual Vorlon. His motivations do not line 100% with the rest of his people. So that's interesting to know. We shall see.
Okay, good. And Lou, if someone wants to give you feedback or to check out the YouTube channel, how can they?
They can go to Lou's Reviews, where they'll find this podcast, along with our Writers Podcast, our JKL Media Podcast, and where we're currently doing 12 Monkeys, as well as I have a Stephen King podcast there as well. On Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma.
Karen?
I am at Aliveria on the various social medias, and my blog is alistuff.com. And the landing page there has a lot of links to other podcasts, other blogs, things like that.
Super. And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. We would love to hear from you. Let us know what you like about the show. What do you think you don't enjoy? And by the way, It is now available to not only buy the download for Babylon 5, The Road Home, but you can buy a physical copy as well. And I just made that pre-purchase as well, doing my little bit to help us get new Babylon 5. All right, guys, this was, like I said, I'm excited to see what starts next week. I know what's coming up for the end of season 3, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Not spoilers.
Awesome.
So, yeah. But for now, everyone, be kind, be safe, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And see.